Hello, glad you can join us. Here's what we have for you this Wednesday, the details in the Air Canada deal that could set a precedent.
All other flights are all full.
Plus, the fallout from a failure to fly.
They're not just printing children's toys anymore. They are serious items.
The homemade threat that set off alarm bells.
So we're going to ignore these stupid white hippies, and we're going to get back to the business of protecting the American people.
Plus, anger on Washington streets over a White House directive.
CTV National News with Sandy Ronaldo.
We are learning more about the tentative deal the union representing flight attendants reached with Air Canada, a deal that lays out a plan to bump up salaries and put an end to unpaid work. It's resulted in a ramping up of flights for the national carrier, but ongoing delays are still fueling frustration for passengers. CTV's Adrian Gobriel took on this assignment today. Okay, Adrian, what do we know about the deal?
Sandy, what we're learning is that the ground pay being offered to flight attendants as part of this deal would set a new industry standard here in Canada. As for the hourly pay increase for junior cabin crew, well, that would still leave some struggling to make ends meet.
With Air Canada slowly getting its fleet off the ground, industry watchers say parts of the proposed deal will leave some flight attendants deflated.
They won't be able to afford the cost of living and living wage in Toronto and Vancouver.
Air Canada and CUPE have yet to confirm the wage increase being offered, but multiple aviation insiders, including McGill University's John Graddick, say they've seen the numbers.
12% increase immediately for the junior flight attendants, 8% for the more senior flight attendants, and then progressively through the contract, 3.5%, 3%, and then 2.5%.
Though the pay grade for cabin crew with less than 5 years of service will still fall short of what some U.S. carriers offer their staff who work out of major hubs.
If you happen to live in LA, if you happen to live in New York, or happen to live in Chicago, we're giving you an extra $2,000 a month. And that should get you up to a living wage in those cities where you have a high cost of living.
Air Canada flight attendants haven't been receiving an hourly wage while checking in passengers. CTV News has confirmed that the airline is now offering 50% of their hourly rate as ground pay for the first hour of pre-flight work on a narrow-body aircraft and 70 minutes for larger planes. The ground pay rate will increase to 70% by the time the deal expires in 4 years.
The flight attendants at Air Canada felt that this was a negotiating element of their contract that they could get a lot of Canadians to support.
Air Canada's offer of ground pay follows a similar move already made by Delta Airlines in the U.S. It could trigger similar demands by flight attendants at other Canadian carriers. WestJet's contract with its cabin crew expires at the end of the year.
A source tells CTV News that CUPE began presenting the Air Canada offer to their members this morning. Voting is expected to be completed by the end of next week.
Okay, Adrian, thank you. Now, Air Canada is trying to clear the backlog of delayed or canceled flights, but won't be flying on all cylinders for the next 7 to 10 days. And it means never-ending travel headaches for many, except now Air Canada is also offering a refund. CTV's Sean Leathong on this and some of the stories he's hearing from travelers. Hi, Sean.
Hi, Sandy. Well, that refund news isn't quite filtering out to passengers just yet. Many are saying they've had to extend their journey and they're frustrated at how much it's cost. The journey ending in Toronto. Passengers arriving after the strikes end with a sigh of relief.
We had to call Air Canada yesterday just to make sure the flights are still on track, and I guess we were lucky.
As they get planes off the ground and in the air, Air Canada is aiming to return to 80% of capacity. But many of those arriving are feeling
tired, frustrating, but at least they got us where we wanted to be.
After the 3-day strike, direct flights have been hard to find. A canceled flight for Sima Pillay was supposed to be Vancouver to Toronto, but changed to
from Surrey driving to Seattle, Seattle to St. Louis, staying there for 8 hours. Then coming through over here, Toronto Airport.
For those trying to get home?
Not great, I can't lie. Not looking forward to it.
Christopher Field and Sophia Stevens had a direct flight to the United Kingdom.
Now it was Ottawa to Toronto, Toronto to Lisbon, Lisbon to Porto, and Porto to Gatwick. So we've got quite a few connections to make.
We were told that if we don't get this flight, then we won't be home until September the 3rd.
Christina Robertson was supposed to fly Toronto to Edinburgh on Saturday, instead spending 4 days here trying to book another flight.
And every time I'd click on a flight to try and change the flight, it said, no, this is no longer available. Phone Air Canada. And when I phoned Air Canada, they said they had so many calls that they couldn't take any more, and the call was terminated.
Now a longer journey with a stop in Montreal and Dublin before getting home to Scotland, and frustration for the 4 extra days in the city.
It's going to take me about 6 months to be able to kind of pay it all off and save up.
Air Canada says they will cover some costs as they try to lift up their damaged reputation.
So what we've done is we're telling people we're going to reimburse you, if you want to book a flight on your own on another carrier.
But at this point, of the over 500,000 customers that were affected, it's unclear who will qualify. Now, a representative from Air Canada did say that other modes of transport will be covered as well, say a bus or a train, but it was unclear whether they will cover hotel expenses. Sandy.
All right, Sean, thank you for this. Canada Post and the union representing thousands of postal workers are heading back to the bargaining table today, with the union seeking higher wages. The latest proposal includes an increase of 19% over 4 years. Now, the lack of federal mediators busy with Air Canada negotiations has delayed those discussions. After China placed a nearly 76% anti-dumping tariff on Canadian canola last week, CTV News asked the industry minister why the federal government has yet to take any action to support farmers.
We will be there to support our canola industry. We will be there to support our farmers. And I know that the Prime Minister and the Minister of Agriculture have been working together to address this issue.
While Melanie Joly pledged support, no further details were provided. She is currently on a trade mission to Sweden and Finland as Canada seeks to diversify its trade partners. Ontario, meantime, is promising to invest $70 million to protect workers affected by the tariffs, including those in the province's steel industry. CTV's Abigail Beeman now on the frustration that briefly boiled to the surface in Hamilton today. Abigail.
Sandy, the Premier's announcement took a turn in his question and answer session. Doug Ford slammed Lourenço Gonçalves, the head of the American company that owns Ontario-based Stelco Steel, for his support of Donald Trump's tariffs.
And why doesn't he just stay in the U.S.? Because I'm done with this guy signing letters saying, yeah, bring all the steel down to the U.S., tariff the crap out of Canadians. This is the owner. So remember that, Stelco workers, when your owner comes prancing through your place. He doesn't support you. And I look forward to getting a phone call from him because he has my cell number.
Thank you.
I'm going to blast him.
Ford then apologized for getting heated. At one point, he even mused the province should buy Stelco. Stelco was purchased by American company Cleveland Cliffs last year for $3.4 billion. Its CEO has praised Donald Trump's tariffs as recently as Monday, blaming Canada and Mexico for supporting tariff circumvention schemes. Neither Stelco nor Cleveland Cliffs responded to CTV's questions about Ford's comments. Sandy?
All right, CTV's Abigail Beeman. Now, the newly elected Conservative MP for Battle River Crowfoot, Pierre Poilievre, made his first public announcement today since his by-election victory. Poilievre's top priority, getting tough on crime. CTV's BC Bureau Chief Andrew Johnson went to Surrey to listen in. Andrew.
Sandy, people here in the Metro Vancouver city of Surrey have been living in fear after dozens of shootings linked to extortion attempts. The Conservative leader says he has a plan to restore safe streets. Dozens of South Asian businesses in Surrey have been targeted this year alone by extortion attempts involving shootings. Pierre Poilievre wants to strengthen mandatory jail time for extortionists and keep violent offenders behind bars. He is echoing calls from BC's Premier and others to crack down on the Lawrence Bishnoi gang, which has alleged ties to extortion and other crimes, and have the group designated as a terrorist entity.
The Bishnoi gang has been terrorizing communities, shooting up neighborhoods, extorting our people, and taking the money out of our country.
Poilievre was also asked about the investigation into 5 members of the Canadian military. They've been suspended after videos surfaced showing them with other people who were giving Nazi salutes.
We condemn that, and I think the After a decade of liberal mismanagement and poor political leadership, our military is in a difficult state.
The head of the Army, Lieutenant General Mike Wright, has called the contents of the video deeply disturbing and disappointing. Sandy.
Thank you, Andrew. Now, getting tough on crime is also a Donald Trump priority. Today, additional National Guard troops from Republican-led states arrived in D.C. on the orders of the U.S. president, who claims they're needed to control raging crime in the Capitol. Not everyone agrees the city is that unsafe. CTV's Judy Trin went out on the streets of Washington to check out the situation. Judy.
Sandy, in the 9 days since Donald Trump declared a crime emergency in Washington, D.C., hundreds of National Guards have been deployed to patrol the Capitol streets. Today, protesters confronted the vice president inside the city's main train station. An angry welcome for 3 of Donald Trump's top officials as they walked into Union Station to greet the National Guard. The concerns of protesters were dismissed.
We do not have to allow our cities to be taken over by violence and by disorder and by chaos. The voices that you hear out there, those crazy communists, they have no roots. They have no connections to the city.
But the organizers of this protest are from the city.
We're under a military occupation of our city. This is fascism, this is racism. It's directly targeting Black and brown and working class communities in D.C.
Last week, Trump, citing a crime emergency in Washington, D.C., took over the local police force and called in the National Guard. Since then, the White House says nearly 500 people have been arrested and more than 20 homeless encampments have been dismantled. Hundreds of National Guard members have been stationed near subway stations and national monuments.
Sometimes our mere presence has a deterrent effect on criminal activity, and that's really what we're trying to provide.
The Guards have also been patrolling the poor, predominantly Black and immigrant neighborhoods of D.C. Washington's mayor says that crime is on the decline in the capital, and there's no need for the military to be involved.
You know, it doesn't make sense. The numbers on the ground in the district don't support 1,000 people from other states coming to Washington, D.C.
By law, Trump can only use the National Guard for up to 30 days without congressional approval. But the president has already said he wants extensions. Sandy.
All right, Judy in Washington. The U.S. has slapped sanctions on a Canadian judge with the International Criminal Court in The Hague for, quote, ruling to authorize the ICC's investigation into U.S. personnel in Afghanistan. Kimberly Prost is a sanctioned judge. In a statement, the International Criminal Court says it deplores the announcement of new designations and sanctions, which are, again quoting, a flagrant attack on the independence of an impartial judicial institution. EU military leaders met virtually today to discuss security guarantees for Ukraine. But 2 days after Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and European leaders met with President Donald Trump, Russia has still not stopped its aerial attacks or publicly agreed to a high-level meeting with Ukraine's president. Russia's longtime foreign minister, Sergei Lavrov, says Moscow is ready to discuss the political aspects of a deal with Ukraine, but added that any meeting between Vladimir Putin and Zelensky has to be a result of negotiations and careful preparation. Hungary has offered up Budapest for talks. And Israel has given final approval to a controversial settlement project in the occupied West Bank. Palestinians and some human rights groups say the project could destroy hopes for a Palestinian state, as it would effectively cut the territory in two. Much of the international community considers Israeli settlements in the West Bank illegal and an obstacle to peace. Israel's far-right finance minister says, and we're quoting, the Palestinian state is being erased from the table, not with slogans, but with actions. Coming up.
Massive waves, tropical storm force winds, and tidal and storm surge.
Tracking a hurricane's impact on Atlantic Canada. Hurricane Erin is triggering coastal flood warnings and beach closures as the massive storm, as seen from outer space, churns in the Atlantic Ocean and up the U.S. East Coast. Erin is also expected to bring strong winds and high waves to the Atlantic provinces. Your mornings, Kelsey McEwen breaks down the path of the storm for us. Hi, Kelsey.
Sandy, as Erin enters into colder Canadian waters, it's likely to decrease in its categorization, dropping down to Category 1 or potentially a post-tropical cyclone if the interior of the storm begins to change. But what's important to note is as that's happening, the storm itself increases in size. So a larger area will be impacted by either hurricane or tropical storm force winds. Now, as we're going through the day on Wednesday and into Thursday, we really saw that the biggest impacts on Wednesday were through the North Carolina coastline, areas of Virginia as well. Through Thursday and into Friday, the biggest impacts will be farther north. But notice even as it's in Canadian waters, Category 1, those winds are still incredibly strong. So largely an offshore story. We'll see the wave heights absolutely elevated through the Atlantic coast of Nova Scotia and up towards the Avalon Peninsula in Newfoundland. Offshore districts like Georges Bank, Scotian Slope, the Laurentian Fan, and the southern Grand Banks need to keep a close eye on this storm, particularly as it moves its way northward through the day on Friday, eventually bringing some precipitation to the Avalon Peninsula.
Right.
Sandy?
Okay, Kelsey, thank you. Now, the winds from the storm will create challenging conditions for crews fighting fires in Nova Scotia's Annapolis County, where roughly 32 square kilometers is burning near the community of West Dalhousie. A campground has been evacuated as the community lives under a state of emergency. CTV's Paul Hollingsworth went there to check it out.
With the out-of-control Long Lake wildfire possibly heading in this direction, campers were told to pack up and leave.
And we had until 5 o'clock Wednesday to get everything out.
Shelley Wagner came here 2 weeks ago to escape a wildfire burning near her home in Halifax.
And then we get this to deal with. It's just too much.
Jason Freeman is hauling Wagner's trailer to a safe location. Freeman is also a volunteer firefighter.
I helped out with the Shelburne fires back in 2023, so it just brings back memories of that, of people evacuating and the teamwork.
Teamwork in the form of random acts of kindness, like community members dropping off bottles of water for the volunteers.
That's something that can't get enough of.
A steady stream of support from people who are grateful for the work being done to save their homes.
Well, it's good because it could be my house that's in danger.
This wildfire is putting a lot of stress and strain on the entire community. The people who live in this area and have been evacuated have the option of staying at the Red Cross shelter. Evacuee Julie Hannum has chosen to not stay at the shelter. Hannum normally thrives on doing good deeds for others.
I'm not used to having it done for me.
She's keeping busy delivering food to the crews working on the other side of this barrier.
We made 240 subs and we just sent them out.
The work by firefighters and community support will continue until the fire is extinguished.
We need rain, 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 and more rain.
Until then, people in Annapolis County are living with evacuation orders, fear, and a high level of concern as this massive wildfire continues to burn. Paul Hollingsworth, CTV News, West Dalhousie, Nova Scotia.
Still ahead, a troubling homemade threat. What police did to stop a man in his tracks. An emotional day for an Ontario community as they said goodbye to a boy killed by a stray bullet. A caravan of vehicles escorted the hearse carrying 8-year-old Jave Roy to the ceremony on Manitoulin Island. Early Saturday morning, the boy was asleep next to his mother when a stray bullet tore into their Toronto apartment. A vigil will be held for the child on Thursday night. Now, police and PEI are so concerned a local man facing a slew of criminal charges and awaiting trial might commit an act of terrorism. They've made an effort to stop him. CTV's Maria Saru is in Charlottetown. Okay, Maria, walk us through this unusual situation.
Sandy, I'm outside the island's RCMP headquarters where police say they pushed for what's called a terrorism peace bond. It was imposed this week, something lawyers say doesn't happen very often here or across the country. Mounties found these 3D printed firearms at a PEI home earlier this year.
This is the first case of charges laid here in PEI in the manufacturing of firearms.
They arrested a 50-year-old man named Daniel Desmond Crowder, who's facing several charges, including uttering threats, manufacturing, and possessing prohibited weapons. In July, he was released from custody under strict conditions. But citing his online comments, the RCMP made an uncommon call, concerned he could commit a terrorism offense.
Police felt that the most appropriate step is to seek a terrorism peace bond.
That's a court order legal experts describe as giving police expanded powers. They can require curfews, more check-ins, and travel restrictions on a defendant. Plus, it draws national attention.
Perhaps it'll prevent more moving across borders, more internet activity, even getting on a plane. So it's an extra piece of insurance for the police.
These circumstances are certainly rare on the island, but the 3D printing of weapons is a problem across the country.
As you go west and you're going into the country proper and dense cities, these ghost guns, these firearms, these 3D printers, they're not just printing children's toys anymore. They are serious items.
Crowder appeared in court Monday and agreed to these conditions. His trial will take place later this year. Sandy.
Maria, thank you. When we come back, I-do's canceled by an airline strike. Among the many stories of problems created for passengers by the Air Canada strike is an Ontario couple who missed their own destination wedding.
We had maybe 12 hours to figure out what our situation was. We had found out on late Sunday evening that our flight was going to be canceled.
Juan and Becca Lopez received this notice that their trip to Cancun was not going ahead, while some of their 27 guests were already on the way.
Some of the folks that had to come in from other countries as well. There were opportunities that were missed. There were things that were actions that were done that we can't really go back and ask people to replicate.
The couple did get a refund, but plan to ask Air Canada to reimburse them for other wedding expenses they've already paid.
Did have some guests that weren't flying Air Canada and weren't impacted, so they did have to take that trip, and they are there right now. So we're losing out on the wedding, we're losing out on some time with family.
The couple was married in a small ceremony earlier this year, but the real celebration was meant to be in Mexico, and they fear the moment is likely gone. All right, thank you for sharing your time with us. I'm Sandy Ronaldo. Your local CTV News is coming up. We'll see you tomorrow, we hope. Have a nice evening. Bye for now.